There's a great scene at the end of the Truman Show where Truman's figured out that everything is fake, that it's not real, and he really desires something real. And the producer of the show is trying everything he can to keep Truman in his own little manufactured world. And he actually manufactures a storm to come up. And as the storm's threatening his life, he could possibly drown. The producer, who's kind of like it's a false god. He begins to speak to Truman. After Truman capsized from the boat, he gets back in his boat. Truman turns and is ready to leave. And the producer is trying to hold him in, tell him you can't leave. And Truman says, "Who are you?" And the producer says, "I'm the creator of a TV show." And then Truman says, "Well, then who am I?" And he goes on to say, "Well, you're the star of the show." But he says, is any of this real? And I just love that question, like, who are you and then who am I? Because to really know the truth of who we are, we need to know who the truth of God is.
Tossed by the storms of life, we can lose our way. Like a compass, the Oblates of the Virgin Mary, we act as instruments to point the way. Venerable Bruno Lanteri, the founder of our congregation, was known for spiritual direction, simply being present to listen, offer words of encouragement, and guidance is a ministry of the Oblates that we continue today.
I'm Mark D'Andrade.
And I'm Faith Hassel.
Whenever I first moved to Boston about 10 years ago, I started feeling very lost in my faith. I didn't really feel grounded in any way whatsoever, and I stopped going to Mass on a regular basis. And my work situation was getting harder and harder. I was working as a postdoc at Brigham and Women's Hospital, and I was working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, and just every single piece of my life just seemed to be falling apart. I started thinking about maybe I should go to St. Clement's or go to church in some sort just to meet some people. While I'm not the kind of person that normally goes to priest for any kind of help or advice, I decided one day after Mass just to talk to Father Peter and asked him, "Hey, can you just take a few minutes and chat with me about some things that are going on?" And Father Peter, being Father Peter, was just like, "Oh yeah, just come in after, before confession tomorrow, and we'll chat." And I was like, "Tomorrow? I haven't had a chance to prepare, think about what I wanted to say." And so I kind of just laid to him all of the details of what was going on in my life and just all the struggles that I was having. And Father Peter just sat there and listened and just, reassured that, struggles in life have purpose, struggles in life have meaning. He gave me some really good advice on how to start praying and how to incorporate prayer more into my life. It really was where over time, I was starting to open myself up more to God, more to what He was asking of me. And it really just helped bring me some peace and some, consolation in that kind of dark period of my life. And it really helped, start a bridge for me to be, part of the St. Clement community. Father Peter is now my running partner, and we're part of the same running club. And so it's been a really great, fruitful and, blessing for me to get to know the Oblates, men who can really live by example.
Because there's such a battle in the world that we're living in, and you have to acknowledge the spiritual battle that's going on, that we're weak. I love that Lanteri just really encourages us to lean into our brokenness and not to let that discourage us. Lean in to have confidence in the Lord, not in ourselves.
Probably like 4 or 5 years from Mark's story, I was in a really dark spot, and I knew that I always wanted to be married and have children, and I was turning 30 and still hadn't found anybody. So I went to St. Clement's every day for months and just cried and prayed after work and just hoped that there was going to be some sort of consolation in all of this desolation. One day when I was at St. Clement's, Father Bob saw me and he just came up to me and asked me how he could pray for me. And I had shared with him and I just started bawling. And I was like, I feel like I'm just being punished. I feel like, you know, there's just something that I've done and God won't like show me who my husband is supposed to be and won't put us together. And I had lost all hope. I was just like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And he was like, I'm gonna be praying for you, Faith. And he walked down the aisle in St. Clement's, and I'll never forget, he entered a pew and he just started praying for me. This feeling that overcame me when Father Bob would say that he was praying for me, that I was like, I know that God hears his prayers and that God is gonna answer. Sorry. And then after talking to Father Bob on May 19th, 2 years ago, I met Mark at Father Jonathan's final vows. Like, all hope was restored, and I just remember the next day Mark texting me being like, we should get brunch. I was like, oh my gosh, he might be the one. Fast forward 2 years later, in a couple of days, on May 31st this year, we will get married at St. Clement's. And it's thanks to the Oblates prayers and the place that brought us together.
I know I don't have it. I don't have all the grace. I need his. I'm not a Superman. I'm super weak. And in Lanteri's words, to I think leverage that, to have confidence in the Lord's love and have confidence in his mercy.
One of our greatest stories in our relationship, where I cried again, we went to Lisbon. Mark turns to me and he was just like, the reason why I wanted to take you to Fatima was because 5 years ago I came here and prayed and asked Mary to help me find my wife, and I'm bringing you back as a thanksgiving for us to pray as a prayer of thanks that she has brought us together.
I think it's timely. We have this season of hope. And in this Jubilee year, we're reminded that we are pilgrims of hope. We're on a journey, and we're not on a journey alone. We're on a journey together. And just through the Oblates of Virgin Mary and the friendships that we have formed, friends who've become part of our family, just to be gathered here tonight to support our future priests and seminarians, that they might become heralds of hope for the kingdom of God.